Hello again, everybody. God be with you. Well, on this lovely sunny morning, I'm going to read another story from Bob Hartman's book. I realised when I started looking at this story that all the previous stories that Bob had written were from the point of view of a young boy. This story is from the point of view of a young girl, and she's a mourner. Now, in the days of Jesus, when somebody died, it was common practice for all the ladies of the village to go and grieve with the family. And they do that in a number of different ways. And we'll find out about some of them as we read the professional mourners version. I'd never heard such wailing in my life, which is saying something really, seeing as wailing was my job, or would have been one day. I was an apprentice, you see, at Lamentations Limited, the nation's most famous firm of professional mourners. You die, we cry. That was our motto. So whenever anyone passed away, we got the call to join the family and weep along with them. There was usually a bit of breast beating and garment tearing as well. Anything to show how upset you were at the loss of your loved one. The rule was, the more upset you were, the more noise you made. And the more noise you made, the more you loved the one who died. So we got paid to make everything as noisy as possible. Which is why I was surprised at the volume of the wailing that greeted me when I walked up to the office. Practices were never at full volume, so either one of our own had died or we were all getting the sack. The minute I walked in, though, it all stopped, and 6 pairs of eyes looked at me. So where have you been? Moaned Martha, who actually was a moaner. It's an important speciality, that sort of continuous low-end thrum at the bottom of the grieving package. I was out of town at my aunt's, I shrugged. I just got back. Did I miss something? Miss something? Shrieked Shirley, who, true to her job description, forced me to put my fingers in my ears. Only the worst thing that's happened to us in years? It's that Jesus again, sighed Sarah, like the world was about to end. Well, you mean the rabbi? I asked. Of course we mean the rabbi, shrieked Shirley, and a ceramic pot shattered somewhere on the far side of the room. It's all right, dear, whispered Sylvia, sympathetically, as she took my hand. You're new. We understand. And there were tears in her eyes. But then there were always tears in her eyes. That was her job, to be compassionate, understanding, and, well, sympathetic. She's only an apprentice, moaned Martha. Nothing more than a sniffler. How could she possibly understand? Martha was right, of course. I was just a sniffler. But sniffling was where everyone started. And basic as it may be, it brought a depth to the occasion. The watery eyes, the handkerchief, the runny nose, the little strand of snot. People appreciated it, I think, and I took pride in the contribution I made. So what's the matter with Jesus? I sniffed, rubbing my nose with the back of my hand for effect. As far as I've heard, he does good things, making blind people see, making lame people walk, and making dead people alive again, sighed Sarah, as if that were the worst thing that could possibly happen. It started nearly 3 years ago, wept Wilma, who seemed genuinely weepy. Up in She was struggling to control herself. Galilee, said Sylvia, finishing the sentence and taking hold of Wilma's hand as a gesture of support. There was a widow whose boy died, moaned Martha, as if she was the widow herself. And Jesus showed up during the funeral procession. He touched the casket, wept Wilma, and brought the boy back to life again, Sarah sighed. That sounds like a good thing, I suggested. The widow wanted her money back, shrieked Shirley. Our people were there. They wept, they wailed, they mourned. They showed the utmost professionalism. But because the boy was alive again, his mother wanted her money back. I see, I sniffed. And I really did. Shirley could be truly frightening. So it's sort of about profit? A low growl emanated from the far corner of the room. Anna had been quiet to this point. I'd forgotten she was there. But anger, they say, is one of the necessary stages of grief. And Anna could do anger like nobody else I knew. It's not about profit, she growled. And I have no idea how she managed to do that voice. It hardly sounded human. It's about pride in one's work. It's about honouring one's position. It's about respect. And if Jesus had just kept his nose out of it, moaned Martha, then everything would have been all right. I scratched my head, confused. But the boy would still have been dead, I said. Sylvia took hold of my hand, a single tear trickling down her cheek. I can see how you might look at it that way, dear, but you have to consider the other outcomes. The widow was indeed given a refund, and as a result, our employer had to let a few of us go. We lost 2 eye daubers and one of our best breastbeaters. A tragedy, sighed Sarah, truly a tragedy. Wilma started weeping again. And then there was that business up in Capernaum. She blew her nose, and then something ripped. Personally, I'd never understood garment rending. Seems a waste of a perfectly decent dress. But I guess the point is that if you're upset enough to tear up something you pay good money for, then you're pretty upset. It's hard going, though, ripping up all that cloth. So Gomer, our chief garment render, conserved as much energy as possible. Well, that's the official explanation. I just think she liked to nap. But she wasn't napping anymore. The dead girl was the daughter of Jairus, an official in the synagogue. Our people were there just doing their job when this Jesus shows up and says she's only sleeping. I know a dead person when I see one, and so does everyone else who works for this firm. And so someone laughed at his suggestion. Rip! No! Shrieked Shirley. No! Everyone covered their ears and hit the floor. Pottery exploded across the room, and the dog clawed its way out the front door. Shirley finally stopped and passed out. Sylvia took my hand again. It was starting to creep me out. And now there were tears running down both cheeks, and a little blood trickling out of one ear. She might actually have been in pain. You understand the problem, dear, do you? I nodded. It's the prime directive, isn't it? The thing that must never, ever happen. A professional mourner laughing. That's right, dear, Sylvia replied, her grip a vice on my hand. Sometimes family members will laugh. It's down to nervousness, mostly. But we must always, in every circumstance, maintain a sorrowful disposition. It's just good form. And I'm afraid, on that occasion, that all semblance of proper decorum was lost. I blame the rabbi, Anna growled, and there was a great deal of nodding and moaning and sighing and ripping, etc., in reply. If he hadn't made such a ridiculous suggestion, she continued, it would never have happened, and more good workers would not have been lost. They couldn't be trusted after that, moaned Martha. And the daughter? I dared to ask. She lived, Sarah sighed. So maybe she was just sleeping. Or maybe he brought her back from the dead, I suggested, like he did with the widow's son. Wilmer started weeping again. The point is that he's not up in Galilee any longer. He's here in Bethany, just up the road. And he's up to his old tricks, growled Anna. What, raising people from the dead? I asked. I'm afraid so, whispered Sylvia, wrapping her arm around my shoulder. It's bad news, I know, but it has to be faced. But it's not, I started to say. Not the end of the world, dear, said Sylvia, patting me on the head. Yes, I'm certain of that. We all are. But we must be vigilant. The dead man's name was Lazarus, said Gomer, with a rip. He was one of Jesus' friends, sighed Sarah, and he was very ill. The man's sisters begged for Jesus to come, moaned Martha. But he stayed away and let his friend die, Anna growled. To be fair, added Sylvia, they do say he stayed away so that he could demonstrate the power of God. In that case, said Gomer, rip, Lazarus was buried. They used another firm of mourners, Sarah sighed. The dead bodies shop, moaned Martha. Amateurs, Anna growled. And now Wilma was weeping again. Jesus asked one of the sisters if she believed that she would see her brother again. The woman said, yes, on the last day when the dead are raised. And then Jesus said the most terrifying thing. I am the resurrection and the life, shrieked Shirley, popping up from the floor like she had popped up out of the grave. Whoever believes in me will live, even if he dies. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Never die, moaned Martha. Don't you see? If no one ever dies, we're ruined. And if people know their loved ones will live again, sighed Sarah, and they'll see them, what's the point of grieving? 'Cause they'll miss them in the meantime, surely, I argued. There wasn't much meantime for Lazarus and his sisters, growled Anna. Jesus saw to that. Gomer tore her dress with one long dramatic rip. He told them to roll the stone away from the front of Lazarus's tomb. They say the smell was overwhelming, moaned Martha. And then Jesus said the words, sighed Sarah. What words? I asked. Sylvia whispered in my ear. Lazarus, come out. And he did, shrieked Shirley. He walked out of the tomb alive, all covered in grave cloths. He did. He was alive. And that's when it happened. That's when I violated the Prime Directive. That's when I started to laugh. I'm sorry, I apologise. I really am. I know you all find this news upsetting, but this is just about the best thing I have ever heard. An end to death. A future that lasts forever. Resurrection and life. I think I want some of that. Then you had better turn in your hanky, said Sylvia coldly, removing her arm from my shoulder and her hand from mine. So I did. And as the room filled again with weeping and shrieking and ripping and sighing and moaning and growling, I walked out of the office and headed for home. And I wondered, with this thing that Jesus was doing, resurrection and life, might there possibly be an opening for a professional laughter? Well, I think I could apply for that job. I like a good laugh, especially one where you can see a happy ending. Well, there you go. Another story. Keep well and keep safe. God be with you.